evening, everybody. This is John Marola from Keeping It Real, Section 5 Football. And this is our 14th episode. And like I've said before, we're just moving right along. Tonight's interview will be, if you notice, our guy in the middle, George Giordano. I had him on as a partner when Paul was down in Florida last month. And we're going to talk about camps. But first, I got to introduce my partner to my far right, Section 5 Hall of Famer Paul Brigandi. Paul?
Thank you, John, and hello, everyone. And hello, George. I'm glad that we have you on. And thank you for the excellent job you did filling in when I was down in Florida.
I appreciate it, Paul. I know there were big shoes to fill, but we had a lot of fun there.
Yep.
And we had Thad Brown at the time and Coach
James Johnson, too.
And two media guys. And, boy, they really did a nice job.
Yes.
Very well done.
Everything went great. We're going to talk a little bit about camps. George runs camps throughout the year, pretty much. And the first thing I got to ask him, what Paul and I were talking about earlier, is the name of your business is G Athletics.
Yeah, we started camps upon my retirement back in 2011. And we said, okay, let's do this the right way. We wanted to make sure that we did everything properly. And so we formed an LLC, G's Athletics. And since then, we've blossomed out into almost every sport, like you mentioned, year-round. And that's our sponsoring agent or our LLC.
I was thinking that Paul and I were talking earlier before you were here. I was coming up with it's a decent name, G Athletics, but it's kind of like, what does it really represent? So I was thinking of things maybe to help you along a little bit, and I was thinking about.
I appreciate that, John. Thank you.
No, I know. I was thinking about that, but I have another suggestion for you, maybe for the name. What about Camping with G?
It's a little strange, I don't know if the parents out there would really appreciate that when we send them our brochures. Camping with G is something we'll put on the back burner right now.
Okay.
If that's okay with you. That's okay with you.
Well, let's get this.
Something that came to mind.
Okay.
Let's get this started with your history with camps, and I know firsthand that you had a conditioning camp back at Greece Olympia in the 80s.
Yeah, the camps, it's, nothing new. Coaches have been doing them for years, whether it's been basketball, football, every sport under the sun. Everybody wants to get a little bit of an edge, as we all know. Back then, when I first started, Section 5 and New York State Public High School Athletics Association had quite a few regulations during the off-season. If I remember correctly, you could only work with camps where there were multiple schools represented. You just couldn't exclusively work with your kids. And, since then, things have slackened. And pretty much now it's 365. We're talking football here, but almost every sport that I work with, coaches are working with their kids in the off season exclusively with their teams.
Okay, and John, your dad go way back to camps where it was basically a conditioning camp in the early 70s, right?
Yeah, my father started a power fitness, and it's called Power Fitness Camp up at Cardinal Mooney. Started that in 1970. But like we were saying, back then, kids were playing other sports, or it wasn't that year-round type of thing. And that was a fitness camp. That was trying to get the kids in shape to play football. Where more or less these days, the kids are basically doing stuff year-round.
Yeah, back in the day, even before that, I would say probably before the 70s, a lot of the coaches were three-sport guys. And a lot of your guests that you've had on, the coaches went from football to wrestling or basketball, right into track, lacrosse, whatever. And their summer was really for them and their families. And I'm not going to say that they didn't do any off-season, but very rarely would they do a lot of in-depth camp work. It would be maybe some more conditioning a couple mornings a week. I know Don Quinn was a leader in the weight training piece. And when he did it 2 days a week, Don Santini would have to do it 3. When Don Santini did it 3, Warner Kleeman started doing it 4.
Yep.
Because of the competitiveness of the off season. And then, of course, Tony Bianchi took it to another level out at Webster. And in order to run with him, you really had to be at the top of your game year round, and hence camps. And then things evolved into, we talked earlier a little bit about a camp that was out at Brockport State football, and we're more specific to football here on this show. But once they had started, now all of a sudden, regulations started to slacken a little bit, and equipment went on, and one thing led to another, and 2 teams started together, and then 4, and then 8, and et cetera, and it just grew into a more, let's call it a competitive off season. So here we are now with camps being really a regular part of a family's planning for the summer.
Well, I remember one that we probably all worked at, and camp Ben Giuseppe was running, and actually we'll have him on sometime as a guest, because I know him and Don Santini, they started a football camp. It was at Cuca Lake.
Yep.
And then that evolved to the U of R football camp.
Yeah, the Cuca camp was really the first team camp that I was ever involved with. Like you mentioned, Ben and Don were the coordinators, but almost every high school coach had stopped in there at least once throughout the week to check on their kids. Jim Cleveland out of Penfield, Ben Nix out of Franklin, Jeff Crane out of Brighton. I remember the brochure having their names on it, Mike Haw out of Livonia. So there were a lot of kids from different areas, and they formed teams. Now that was more of an individual camp, and it started to grow. They came from Cuca Lake to the University of Rochester, and that's really where team camps blossomed. It was Don Santini, Dick Domenico out of Albion, ourselves out of Olympia. Bane Johnson brought his team from Pittsburgh. And, of course, again, it went from 4 teams to 6 teams. Teams came and went, but it then, again, blossomed into, hey, they're doing it at Olympia, so Athena's got to do it, and one thing led to another, and now here we are with a pretty full summer full of camp stuff.
Yeah, and I remember then, too, they were one of the first that you actually wore equipment. You wore a helmet, shoulder pads to a camp. And, that started the whole, like you said, the team camps. But, I know us in the city, we were not allowed to use the equipment to go to those camps until later on.
Yeah, you really had to fight for your program, because when you are lining up against teams that are at camp, you're driving by saying, "Oh boy, they got 40 kids out there. They're in full gear." Mm-hmm. Again, they were, as the state loosened their regulations. I remember going to the U of R camp in the early '80s. It was full contact.
Yeah,
I mean, it was full pads, full contact. We've taken it down a little bit from then, because, of course, we don't want to get anybody hurt. But technically, I think the coaches now are with their kids year-round, especially in the weight room. Once this time of year hits, late May, June, they start getting together with 7-on-7s after dinner, for a couple of hours. They have combined practice sessions with each other. I know that Irondequoit, we're going out to Brockport. They're hosting a 3-night mini camp with probably 4 or 6 teams. Give you time again to spend time working with your kids, inserting your timing, your plays, your formations. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, we're talking year round, but once August hits, then things get serious. They do get serious.
George, when you started these camps, and just like we would talk to a coach on some of their role models, some of the people that gave you guidance, who are people you look to that ran camps, or some of the questions you had that you could bounce off through someone who had some experience in the camps?
Yeah, you already mentioned Ben Giuseppe. I was fortunate enough to be a teacher under his guidance at Greece Olympia. He was our athletic director there. Probably the most organized man. You played for him, Ben, Johnny. You coached under Ben. Mm. Probably the most organized guy. We always joke about the point charts and the practice plans and everything that really sets up a camp. But Werner Kleeman, was a guy that I always spent a lot of time with when I was at the U of R, and we sat down at lunch, and he'd always talk about organizational and flow and how the practice has to go. So, I learned a lot from those two guys. Don Santini, of course, was there and coaching hard. Dick Domenico, although those guys weren't involved with the infrastructure of camp. I learned a lot of football about a lot of practice time and how you get kids from point A to point B seamlessly. Running a camp is, it's a labor of love. You have insurance issues, you have field permits, you have registration, all the paperwork that goes into making sure. It's like, I always like to think of it as like planning a wedding. It's this year-round planning, and then it's 3 days of camp, and you hope that you don't have to worry about anybody getting hurt or breaking anything, digging up a field.
Yep.
And hearing from the school district. But, we're going to talk about some camps here in a minute, but it is very much like planning a big event, a wedding or something like that. And it comes and it goes, but there's a lot of behind the scenes to make it run.
And I don't know, again, you have hands-on in all areas, but, maybe some delegating, who's taking care of the applications, who's, taking care of the sites, some of the supervision things that you need, having your athletic trainers there at the site.
Going into the event itself, I pretty much take that all on. My son Dante is also a big part of the registration piece. He'd be my right hand man. But a lot of it is, you do it so much throughout the whole year that you're trying. Like, we already have our field permits ready for August. We already have our trainer scheduled for our days. That was cool.
Yeah.
Is this a discotheque? What's going on here?
Wow.
Did you hear that call?
I did hear
that. I don't know if we were underneath like 747.
People are calling in.
Okay, well, are we going to take the call? Or no, we're not. Ooh. Ouch.
Check.
It's President Biden. Maybe you should. Okay, anyways. Anyways, getting back to the infrastructure of camp, lots going into it. Again, hopefully it's a seamless start. We get the kids there. We give them their schedule. They abide by it. Their coaches obviously have to be a big part of moving a big group of kids from field 1 to field 15. Lately, we've had Pete McCabe,
one of our guests.
He's organized the officials.
Oh, great.
And so they get a chance to come out and rub shoulders with coaches in really a non-stressful environment. They get to talk to the kids. They'll drop a flag and then walk over to the kid and say, "Hey, listen, you're lined up in the neutral zone," or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're able to get to
new rule changes and communicating.
Yeah, so we have coaches, we have kids, parents, officials. It's a big, undertaking. And you guys are going to be at the Westside camp this year, and you guys have been here many times at the Westside camp, and you know what we're up against. Mm-hmm. When I'm the director, I always tell everybody, when you're a director of a camp, you've got 600 kids on the field, 100 coaches, whatever it might be. You got one eye on them, and you got one eye on the trainer. We hope that trainer's standing there in the same spot doing nothing
for the whole time.
And less is more.
Yeah, exactly. So we have one eye on the kids, one eye on the trainer, and one eye in the sky. Because believe me, the first thing I look at is the weather conditions.
No, definitely.
Right.
We've had lightning strike. We've had, so we live by the Section 5 weather.
The half hour.
Yep. We've had lightning delays and canceled nights. 2 years ago, we had a heat advisory of well over 100 degrees. At 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, we still were not on the field. Our trainers kept us off, which is all important stuff for us to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. So, again, not a soul in the place is worried about the weather except for me. Mm-hmm. And something you can't control.
Exactly.
And the trainer is, again, very, very important. We have a trainer. His name is Jeff Zink. Does a phenomenal job of taking care of all the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
One of the questions, is and you could probably shed some light on this, when the actual football season starts. And then how do you schedule when you want to have your camp? These coaches, do they like to have a week off before the actual start of the season? How do you decide when you want to run the camp? And is it a facility usage thing? Is it some of the coaches, as far as how much time they want freedom before the season starts? They want this camp in by a particular date?
Yeah, everything that we do hinges off the start of the season. We found out a long time ago that 95% of the coaches want the week before the season to start, the varsity and JV season. They want that week off, whether it's to put some fine tuning in with their own kids or go on vacation because they know it's going to be a long pull.
Right.
And they've had a long pull to that point. So our varsity and JV teams always have 1 week off. The modified camp for the younger kids, they come in the week later because they start later. So we always give them a week off. So there's a staggered start to when the camps are run. So the varsity JV is earlier, the modified's a little bit later. This year we had an issue, of course, as you guys know, that the season was pushed back a week earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And what had happened then is once that was voted in and approved by New York State, I had to call all my facilities people, my trainer, everything had to be pushed back by
By a week.
by a week.
Mhm.
So it's it's an ebb and flow thing. To answer your question, Paul, yeah, it's not so much the fields. We've had good luck with fields, but it's more the start of the football season.
So when is the start of the football season, the date of that, and when is the Westside camp?
Okay. Like I mentioned, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association pushed the start of football back this year to the start of football is going to be the 19th, the Monday the 19th. Originally was the 26th. So we took the camps and we moved them all back. And so my camp season with football really starts in July, early July. Is this a dance studio? Oh, boy. Anyways, we don't want to answer that phone.
Why not?
Hopefully we're counting this all out of our broadcast.
No. Hello? No? It was Sam Casarino, one of your...
Who?
Sam
Who?
Casarino.
Okay, well.
And you've been telling me I don't have call-ins.
Yeah, I have to
We're
say.
getting a lot of call-ins are coming.
Paul, I do have to say that Sam Casarino is our JV coordinator for Westside Camp because he goes down to the South 40, takes all the JVs down there, and he takes care of the field. So, Sammy, will try to get back to you at some point, but
You don't need him now, so...
Yeah, right, exactly. He doesn't bring anything to the table. So, anyways, getting back to camps, youth camps.
Let me do one thing real quick
Sure.
before we go back to that. I wanted to do it earlier and it just popped in my brain. The first thing is making sure people subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please do. It, like I said before, it gives us, that we want our channel to grow. So just hit the subscribe button, the like, and if you have any comments, please do that. The other thing is that I've always mentioned before is my guy up at school, Nick Taranko. He's always thinking of little things. So when G gets done with everything with his camps, we'll have it listed at the end of the show with our credits. And he's also going to pop in is our QR.
Mm-hmm.
So if you got your phone and you see the code up on the screen, just put your phone to that and take it down. And it takes down all the information that we're talking about today. So that's just one other little added device that we've gotten into to help us with this. Okay.
Yeah, why don't you, George, maybe explain a little bit about what will happen in this camp? What's the time schedule? How do you organize it and between the teams and how that coordination?
Yeah, I'd like to maybe start with who is actually in the camp, what teams are there, and teams have come and gone over the years, starting back about 15 years ago when it came out of Brockport State. Ed Matakovic had a camp there, and some of the original members at that camp, Coach Lapani actually was part of the directors group at Brockport, and he still brings his Hilton squad there. At the time, again, Aquinas was there under different leadership. Dave Neiman was the head coach, and so we had Brockport, and that ended up becoming the Westside football camp, which was then moved to Gates Chili under our umbrella, and it just grew and grew. We ended up in Arcadia. We were at Irondequoit for a little bit. Now we found hopefully a permanent home at Greece Olympia because there's so many fields there that we're pretty much able to accommodate 12 programs, 12 varsity and 12 JVs. And our teams that are coming this year at the varsity and JV level: Hilton, Irondequoit, McQuaid, East High, Arcadia, UPrep, Olympia Odyssey, Spencerport, Gates, Eastridge, Churchville, and Aquinas. So a really nice lineup. As you talk about those teams, you have, we like to think it's a championship level. I don't know of any other camp in New York State that has that many teams, that many kids, that many titles under their belt. Of course, McQuaid has, run 5 in a row at the Class AA. East High is defending champ at A. Hilton won A. Irondequoit's won A 2 of the last 6 years. And of course, we have Aquinas. Mo Jackson's bringing Coach Jackson's bringing
fantastic group of programs.
Yeah, and the one thing that we pride ourselves in as a staff, as a coaching staff, when they come to camp, everyone has got to be on the same page. We've got to keep the intensity level to the point where it's controlled. We don't want to get not one kid hurt. Every night I address all 600 kids or however many there plus 600, and we sit down and we meet at midfield, and then I tell everybody your job is to take care of one another. And if you ever go to the Bills camp, which Johnny, you're a big part of, go to the Bills camp, and we like to use the word whiz. We don't get into hitting a guy, blindsiding a quarterback or a receiver that's going over the middle. You've got to make sure that you're lining them up and then taking a course not to make contact. So we've had other coaches and we've had programs that have wanted to get into camp, and their reputation precedes them a little bit. And I say, you know what? We don't need that kind of strange activity.
Yep.
These guys that I just mentioned, these programs are all on the same page, and we hope that continues. And if not, then they end up looking for a camp somewhere else.
Yeah.
So,
what are the dates for that?
Okay, yeah, the Westside football camp is Monday, August 5th now through the 7th. We're at Olympia. We go 6 to 8. Usually by 8:15, things are getting dark and the mosquitoes are flying, and everybody wants to get out of there by 8, and they want to get out of there healthy. And so we meet there, and whistle blows at 6, and it's got to be a fine-tuned machine, because when you have 12 varsity and 12 JVs and a horn goes off, they've got 5 minutes to find a new field and start.
Just a transition between whatever field 1 to field 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Whatever.
If you had a drone, it would look like a African, migration. There's bodies moving everywhere, and 2 lines, and okay, you're on turf now. You're in the backfield, so it's they get a practice plan, of course, and that was one of the things that I wanted to make sure of, is that there's their rotation, their 3-night rotation, because they do get 3 scrimmages a night. There's no overlap. They're not scrimmaging somebody twice, and then at the end of the week saying, "Hey, I didn't get to see Hilton, but I saw Athena twice." And I think that was a big problem. And with camps, the big thing is reps. Every kid that's there wants to prove that they can get on the field. And the reps are very important. That's why we have 3 scrimmages a night, because some coaches will make arrangements and say, okay, in our second scrimmage tonight, Paul, you and I want to get my second group in there. So we're not going to put our first out there at all.
Right.
Because maybe in the first scrimmage we did. Now the second scrimmage is for our seconds, and then we'll go back to our starters. So most teams will come in, there's some very healthy programs here. Hilton will come in with probably high 40s.
Mm-hmm.
Rich has got to do a good job of making sure that his starters get their reps against some teams, and his seconds and thirds get their reps as well. So that's very important. And Bobby Bates and McQuaid, he was on already. He talked about 150 kids being in his program, and most of them are at camp. Now, minutes are a premium, so we've got to be super organized. And everybody gets a practice plan, and you got to live by that.
Now, do any of those teams? I know in past years when we were up there, they had a open spot. Is that going to be still around, or you know what I'm saying?
Well,
a bye,
like a bye.
Yeah, the bye always came because we had an odd number of teams.
Yeah, but now
we've fortunately got 12, so we end up you'll see 9 of the 10 opponents, not 9 of the 11 opponents.
Okay.
So there's some coaches are saying, well, you know what, East is opening up against Hilton.
Oh, because in the same classification, they maybe keep.
So they'll say, it's our first game. We'd rather not. And so I start with the knots when I put the schedule together, like Aquinas, McQuaid, Eastridge, Irondequoit, Spencerport, Olympia, whatever it might be, and then I rotate that around so that they don't see each other upon their request.
Yeah.
And most of the coaches are like, we don't care.
Yeah.
We just don't care because if we open with that team, we'll just put our seconds against them.
Yeah.
So,
do you do any 7-on-7 there too? Or no?
First night we have our first session because people are doing 7-on-7 so often during the summer. We put 7-on-7 on the schedule or coach's option. So if the coaches get together and say, you know what, we've had enough 7-on-7, then we're going to do 11-on-11. And then there's some schools that maybe are lacking linemen for whatever reason. Maybe they're on vacation or they just don't have a lot of linemen. We'll say, I want to do a 7-on-7 every night. So there's that option to go to the passing game a little bit more.
Are the teams? I mean, do they all warm up together? They warm up individually with their own team. How does?
We've evolved, Paul. We've evolved. When we were at Gates, started off at Gates, we'd have the JVs on one field and the varsity on the other. But as things grew, the coaches were like, listen, after you're done talking, George, I just want to get to my field. I'll put them through my warm-up, and it's a 10, 15-minute stretch, and then maybe another 10 minutes of walkthrough or just teaching.
Organized themselves.
Actually, when we first started, and you might remember this, like at the U of R or even at Gates when we first started, we would have indie time.
Yeah,
and I'll talk about the mods in a second here, but and their schedule's a little bit different. But you would say, okay, Johnny, you're in charge of the linebackers. Paul, you're in charge of the defensive ends. So you'd go there, and kids from Pittsford or Aquinas, they would all the linebackers would be with you. All the defensive ends would be with you. And then one year, the line coaches said, we want to really be with our own kids. We don't want to worry about teaching zone technique, the gap blocking or whatever.
Right.
So the linemen said, we're going to go into our own little, and they only use a telephone booth worth of grass, And so they went, and the next year, the quarterback coaches said, well, we don't teach, toe drag or anything like that, whatever that is.
Yeah.
So I want my quarterbacks with me instead of in this big group with some other coaches. And then finally, it was much easier to say, Hilton, field 1, East, field 2.
Right.
Aquinas field 3, and you got it at 7:30.
The horn.
The horn goes off. I don't care where you are.
We're moving.
Yeah. So,
that makes sense, and whatever works through how it's evolved.
Yeah, I mean, with 12 teams, everybody's doing something a little different. So I'm not telling them what they have to do. If Coach Lapani says I want to take my guys over there, where I got that idea, Paul, was from Joe Casameno.
Wow.
We had a camp down at Canandaigua.
Right.
And it was same thing. Each coach had different positions. And Joe said, George, no offense, but I just want my kids with me. And they went off into the weeds and they came out and kicked everybody's butt. And Joe said, we're here to scrimmage. We're here to spend some time with our kids. And we really don't need to waste time. So
Joe was the great coach at Christian Brothers Academy in Syracuse, and they won state championships.
Right. Yeah.
And then we go on to St. John's down in Washington D.C.
Joe ended up down in IMG.
Oh, IMG also,
yeah. He's been all over the place, and shout out to him if we ever get to see him.
Right.
Joe's a good man, and he's been around for a long time. He's been very successful. In fact, I think he was with CBA when they made their championship.
I remember we would take our kids at Eastside to a college prep camp that he would run.
Joe was a big camp guy. Yeah, spent a lot of time in the off season.
Now, along those lines of Westside Camp, I'd like to let people know what we're going to be doing those 3 days, Paul and I. We're going to be up at Olympia with Westside Camp, and what we're going to do is we're going to interview 4 teams a night. And that interview is going to be a 5-minute session with the head coach and maybe a 10-minute session with a couple of their players. And we will try to pre-arrange as much as we can so the coaches know at this time. And, of course, we're going to work around their schedule. We also know that a lot of their starting quarterback is not going to play all 3 scrimmages that night. So what is the best time to get that? So we really can't come out and say at this time we can't say at this night we're going to do McQuaid, Aquinas, and UPrep because we just want to find what they're going to do, and then so that'll be 4 teams a night, 3 nights. There's 12 teams, and off of that we're going to have the show out. It'll be out that week, and it'll be 3 nights. So because we'll have 4 teams.
Right.
So that's something we're looking forward to doing with that. And then also with those, we are talking about doing live. I've already talked to your head coach, and we're going to be up at Irondequoit August 19th for your first day of practice.
Oh, excellent, yeah.
And we're going to do that live.
Great.
And that's
we
going to
look
be
forward to that.
That's going to be like our first little dry run of just getting things worked out or whatever. Because your opening game against Eastridge, we're going to do that live up there.
Okay.
So
a play-by-play?
No, sir. We're not.
So we're just going to do some highlights.
Actually, what we're going to do is we're going to do a half hour before the game.
Okay.
Pre-game, a halftime. That little time with the coach. And then after the pre-game or post-game with the head coach and a couple players after the game.
Yeah, that would be an excellent.
The actual game itself, Paul and I are going to watch the game.
Watch it.
Okay. All right. I like the thought.
Because with varsity media being around, they'll probably just handle that part.
Right.
But the pregame, halftime, and postgame, we'll come in and do our little.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you guys.
George, is there anything else that you'd like the listeners to know about your camp? What you guys do? Any information they may questions they may have?
Well, the one thing that I've got a couple of things here. People have called us before the show that I wanted to make sure that we got out there. If you're a lineman, okay, there is going to be a lineman-specific camp. It's called the TNT camp. It's going to be celebrating its 25th year.
Wow.
I believe it's going to be held at Victor, and the dates are June 11th and 12th. And more information on that could be probably found at your head coach's office. Right. So if you are a lineman, make your way down to your line coach's office or talk to your head coach about the TNT camp that's run by head coach Blaise Fagiano out of Utica. He's been doing it for 25 years. That's at Victor High School, June 11th and 12th. If you're a younger player, and I'm talking all the way down to the kids that are, kindergarten on up, Bobby Bates and I run a camp at McQuaid, and that camp is July 8th, 9th, and 10th, and we go from 10 to noon. So the McQuaid Youth Football Camp, and again, I believe your QR code will connect that. You can grab an application there. Coach Bates, last year we had about 140 kids running around. Awesome experience right on the McQuaid football field. and kids are running around the first time sometimes.
Was that your first time doing it with Don last year?
No, we did it the year before.
That was
and that's really taken off.
Yeah.
And again, it's a chance for mom and dad to bring them to a camp, grab a camp T-shirt and run around.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things you see and hear out there, you just shake your head and it's like, whoa, that child is really way ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
And so we have girls there too, which brings up a whole new part of football.
Yeah.
And you had Dave Marine on about
Yes,
flag
we did.
football.
He was coaching,
The girls now are playing flag in the spring. They're in their sectional tournament right now. We have girls at the football camp.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe at some point we branch off and see what kind of interest we get in flag football.
Nice.
The only other camp that I have 3 big camps, 4, but is our modified camp. And our modified camp, again, is at Irondequoit the week after Westside. And the teams that are there, Hilton, Irondequoit, McQuaid, UPrep, Eastridge, Aquinas, and Webster Thomas.
Okay.
And so a lot of the younger bucks that are coming up
Mm-hmm.
will have a football camp experience before they get to the JV and varsity. So that's
Nice.
another big undertaking, a whole different group of kids, age group. And when we do that, we don't do as much team because some of these kids don't even know how to put their helmet on yet.
Yep.
So what we do is we revert back to those indie periods.
Mm-hmm.
The first half hour is offensive indie. Second half hour is defensive indie.
Right, okay.
And then 45 minutes with your coach.
Right.
Because
Okay.
the coach might not even know the kids' names yet.
Yep,
Or the coach,
yep,
Gives them a chance to
spend
some
time. And then they get a scrimmage.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? With
Yeah.
somebody else. And so someone that's, those kids from Hilton are big.
Yeah.
The kids, he's big himself, but he's thinking that, they're trading paint with somebody
But
else.
that's a great way to go about going.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. And, between the youth and the modified and the JV and varsity, it's
Mm-hmm.
a very busy summer. When football comes around, I'm ready to take a nap.
Right.
So I hope Coach
You
Ficker
got
didn't hear that, but
You got a full plate.
sure do. Yeah.
I have one last thing I wanted to mention. Again, want to make an announcement on some of the new head coaches in Section 5
Okay.
and where they will be. At Greece Arcadia, Corey Shea.
Mhm.
At Pittsford, Steve Marriott. At Brockport, Paul Corella. At Wilson, Ellis Randall. At Gates, Andre Fontenette, who will be a guest.
Mm-hmm.
At Webster Thomas, Jason Jobson, and at East Irondequoit, Victor Davidson
Nice.
are some of the new head coaches this year.
That's 7, you said, right?
Yes,
And we were talking earlier, weren't there 7 new coaches last year?
that's what it were.
Yeah,
So
there
over
we
the
go.
So
over
we've
the
had
course-
a lot of big transitions.
Over the course of 2 years, we've had 14 new head coaches in Section 5.
Yeah, well, that's just the greater Rochester
just
area.
right.
We're not talking about
Finger
the
Lakes
outer
and
line.
Livingston
Outlying.
County.
For coaches now, and then we had this whole session when you were in Florida, Paul, about coaches, and the shelf life seems to be a solid one is 5 years,
Mhm.
7.
Say,
It's not like when Don and Dave Lanning and Don Quinn were here, and you're going to have a lot of guests that Gene Maston and Dave Wickham.
Mhm.
The 30-year guy is non-existent. The 20-year guy is non-existent. And I believe that part of it is the 365.
5-7
No,
days.
definitely.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I mean, when you talk about Don Quinn and Werner Kleeman and Don Santini, those guys would put a football down and coach another sport.
Mhm.
Put that ball down and coach another sport.
Mhm.
And then in the summer, they'd go swimming with their children.
Yep.
And that's why they could coach for however many years, 35 years. And
Well,
now-
and you know what?
it is what the guys are making it.
Like just to talk of the camps, the combines, the in-season strength and conditioning. There's so many more aspects. The recruiting. part of football. That so many more parts of the job.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things, too, and I know we're getting off the subject of camps, but one of the other things, and this is my opinion, that when Section 5 started their tournament, it reduced the coaches' longevity. And part of that is I know very successful coaches that ran the table during the regular season, 8-0, 9-0, and they lose in the semis or in the finals, and it's a down year.
Yeah.
I don't want to mention any names, but I know a lot of young coaches that had those very successful years. And if you told me I could win 8 games a year and not win a title, I guess in the old days that was a heck of a
It was.
right.
It was a
season.
A heck of a season, and now you're pumped, you're jacked, you're going into the off season with 6 starters back, and you've won 8 games, and now it's like the season shot.
Well,
Then, of course, too, we went to states. So I could tell you this: at Irondequoit, we won 2 titles. Fantastic seasons. Both years we're undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
We go to Buffalo and we play and we win there. Then we lose in the state semifinals, and everybody's crying. It's like
you're ending
we're
your
11
season
and 1.
you're ending your season on a loss.
Exactly.
Where
So
before we, teams would end on a win.
that takes a lot out of coaches. And you say, oh, we can reflect back, and you're at the banquet, and everybody's like, yeah, that was a good year. But the bottom line is you did not win your last game. So I think that's had a lot to do with the turnover of coaches.
The bar was raised. I mean, going from no sectionals, 2 sectionals, then now we have 2 states. It's the bar is changing, and like we were talking about earlier with the longevity with these coaches, I honestly don't think we're going to see. Like we were talking about, Gene Maston over at Cornell. You're going to see somebody win 100, 200 games as a head coach. I don't see that. It's just there's so much time now. It's just and I've said before, the way that sports are today, you win today. If not, you're going to be gone tomorrow, and that's any level.
And John, you bring up a good point, the time. And I would probably, my advice to anyone that's thinking about getting into the coaching, you better have time.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is a very time-consuming position.
Yeah, no doubt.
It is. Do you have any other camps you'd like to throw in there?
I was looking at my schedule of things. There's a lot of things going on, arrangements made with coaches. Like I'll call Paul up and I'll say, hey, Thursday night, the turf is open. Want to do some 7-on-7? And, we can make that arrangement and kids, come and who's there is there. And, you catch a few balls and defend a few passes. And it's, no helmets or anything. It's just, T-shirts and shorts.
Mm-hmm.
And then like Brockport State's going to have a spring in here in the next couple of weeks. They're going to invite 6 teams. Again, no equipment. And they just come out and spend some time. And some of the colleges, like Coach Mangone out at Brockport, wants those kids on campus. He's going to come out and he's going to eyeball this kid, and this kid and say, hey, you know what? Why don't you make a visit? So there's a little bit of that going on, too. And always something,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're talking about the longevity. If he's doing it 2 days, I'm doing it 3.
Yep.
If I'm doing it 3, you're doing it 4.
Yep.
And that takes a lot of
time and effort.
It certainly does.
And if you have a family and all that other stuff going on, it just there's only so many days a week, so many hours in a day.
Right.
Well, I guess, too, and that was our vision of this whole podcast, is we want to get that information out when things are, when camps are, when 7-on-7s are, communicating to Section 5.
Yeah. One other thing that's big, it's gotten pretty big because we got teams from Syracuse and Buffalo. Dave Marine runs a 7-on-7 tournament at TSE.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say the last weekend in July.
Okay.
And that's kind of like almost like the summer finale before we put the pads on, and it's
the
no
New York State Elite Athletics.
Yes,
Correct,
you mentioned that when he was on the
Right,
show.
right.
Yeah.
He does that.
and that's based on what the coach, if he wants to get involved, he'd have to call Dave and to bring his team. It's not like a bunch of kids showing up and
Throw the ball around or whatever.
right, exactly.
Something I like to mention is now that we have our table set up, I like to mention our table a little bit. It's grown over. I got to go back to Coach Lanning coming in a couple weeks ago with Coach Quinn. We had a great time with them, and that's the little brown jug in the middle.
Right here.
And then the football cleats are, like we said in the other episode, it's one of the students up at school, excuse me, Alex. He says he watches all of our shows. He's watched our shows 2 and 3 times over. And one day he gave me his football cleats and said, well, I said, what's this for? He goes, I retired from football.
Oh. Is he getting a pension?
I don't know.
Wow,
I don't
Those
know.
are solid.
So-
What size are those? I could probably.
You can't fit.
I don't.
Anyways, those are nice.
Those are nice cleats.
Are they our sponsor?
No,
Nike?
no,
Not yet?
no. We're not up there yet.
All right, okay.
So I got to say thanks again to Alex for his cleats. I appreciate that. And the hats over there were from our last episode. We had Kyle Fenn. And boy, I'll tell you, he talked about those Axion,
Oh, the
brand new helmets.
and even the little head piece that you
headpiece.
put on, Johnny. Looked like
I'm still recovering from that. I think.
right.
You put on like this, we call it a ski mask.
Right.
And I thought of this when I was up at school. The kids call it shoisty. Why? I don't know. But it's like a headgear type of thing. And what they'll do is they get their cameras out and they take pictures. And then there's no more pumping the helmet, putting air in the helmet, or taking air out. Everything is pre-made to the dimensions of your head. And the revolution behind that is just, it's cutting edge. I mean, it's something. It was really cool to watch.
Again, it was Kyle with the Rydell Company.
Yes, and we had a great time with him. Our next episode, see, this is kind of tough right now because this episode right now, Coach G would like us to put it out right before camp time. And as our show's going on right now, we're in May. So this is not going to come out until July 3rd, right before the camps start up. So it's hard saying, tune in next week because we're going to have probably 2 or 3 episodes on before this
Sure.
one. So anyways, we're just going to.
By then, we'll be full swing. Everything is going to be rolling.
Oh, definitely.
Once the end of June, middle of June, football coaches are already at it.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for looking down at my phone. I knew you had a couple call-ins there earlier, and one of our guys sent me a text, and maybe you'll get a call and we can get that on the air before we shove off.
Do you want me to try to?
No, I think he might call, he might not. So, anyways.
Oh,
So if you wanted to take a call.
okay. What I'd like to do now is, you know what? Let's go over our sponsors, and I'll start with our first one. The funny thing about this, it was when Danny Fichter was with us. I had my little cheat cards down over here, and the first one is G Athletics. So I looked down at it, and Danny looked down at it, and we both looked up at each other, and we were just shaking our heads.
Mm-hmm.
Just
It's a labor of love, John. It's just a chance to give back to the community.
that's what we try to do. Like I said, when Paul and I were, actually all 3 of us were in my car. Last year, we were driving down to Massillon to watch Massillon and Valdosta. And I don't want to get on this or whatever. I'm telling you, people, if you ever get an opportunity to get outside Rochester and watch football, there's some amazing football. We on our first episode with John DiTullio, John's from Erie Prep. And Prep they're a national power.
Mm-hmm.
And that's 2 hours from here. It's not like you gotta jump on a plane or whatever. And when we talked about Massillon, driving down Massillon, from my house to Massillon is 4 hours and 15 minutes. It's all throughway. It's a great drive. And the first time I took Paul down, it's incredible. We could talk about it all day and all night, but until you go, if you're really a football person and like to see some really, really top notch football, go take a drive. It's not far away, and just it's incredible. When I took Paul, and then when we took George to the Massillon Valdosta game, Valdosta is the number one winningest high school in the United States, and just being in that atmosphere.
Yeah, when you see a high school football team come out with 150 players,
Varsity players.
That just line just keeps coming out with more and more players. And then Massillon, we're talking 100 plus on their sideline coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I was most impressed with on that trip, it wasn't the teams, it was the band.
Well,
The band was like, how many kids were in that band? Like they just kept coming out of the tunnel, and a really big affair. Fireworks, the smoke, and it really make a big deal out of it down there for sure.
Well, and look at their tradition. I mean, you talk about tradition. When Paul Brown was one of your coaches, you're starting with like the top of the top.
Yeah, Earl Bruce, who became head coach Ohio State, Don James at Washington, they were all Massillon head coaches.
Yeah, great stuff.
Okay, just to go down our sponsors here, like I said, we mentioned G, and the one after that is what Paul and I are going to do during the season. We've talked about before is we're going to be at Premier Sports during the season. We're going to broadcast on Wednesday, and it'll be out on Thursday night. We're going to talk about the games that were played, previous games that were played, the upcoming games this week, what games to look out for, the big games coming up. And then at the end of our show, we're going to give out a Player of the Week award. And that's going to be called in by the coaches on Sunday night if they want to nominate a player. And then not us. We have other people that will be doing that part to find the Player of the Week and contact. And then have the player come up Wednesday and get the reward or whatever, recognizing that. And the other thing along with that is our other sponsor is Howie Nielsen up at Sticky Lips. Howie's given us some gift certificates, and we're going to give them to the Player of the Week award, and I think that'll be a great, great little touch. After that, we have is Paul's old player, Ronnie Crawford. Ronnie and I work together up in Northeast, and Ronnie runs a private security company called Under the Radar, and his credits and everything's at the end of the show. But I've said it before. If you need anything as far as security, personal or business wise, Ronnie's the man to talk to. He lives it, and he's such a nice guy. He's a great guy to work for. After that, I have is Rochester Jewelry and Tech. This one is my niece Brooklyn. Her husband Toga just opened up a shop over by Wegmans on Mount Reed, across from Wegmans. They're in that little plaza. That's Toga. If you go inside and say that you've seen the show, he'll cut you some breaks on anything that you want to buy. And I'm telling you something, I was up there last week, and his store is filling up with a lot of really nice stuff. So if you get a chance, just stop over. Like I said, just tell him that you've seen the show and see what he can do for you. The other one I have is Making a Splash. And we all know that guy. That guy would be, do you know who that guy is?
Danny Marola.
That would be him.
Right.
Okay. My brother Dan runs a pool liner service in the summertime. He does repairs or gets new liners for people. He's told me if people would go to him and wanting a new liner, he'll give them, and they mentioned the show, that he'll give him $100 dish off of that. So that's pretty nice. Our last one after that is our new one that I picked up. Actually, I've been dealing with him for a little bit now, but we just kind of partnered up, and that's Custom Print. That's up on West Ridge Road in the Street of Shops. If you're over by Hooligans,
Against Country Suite.
Country
is
Suite
around
in that
there.
plaza right there. Cornell Miller is the owner. It's a family-run business, and I will tell you, the first time I walked into his place, it just they do a great job. I mean, they'll do whatever they can to to help you out. They're great people, and he went to Wilson, played ball for Morty, I think, over at Wilson. So that's how we kind of got that connection going. And but after that, I'm pretty good. You got anything else, G?
I'm pretty good.
Paul, you got anything?
I'm good.
You good? Okay. Well, everybody, just stay in tune. We'll be back. Like I said, this will be on July 3rd. This will be out. But we taped it a little early, just so if we have any changes, we might have to redo a little bit.
Always willing to show up.
Yeah. So.
And John, do you have the picture montage at the end of this?
Oh yes, the pictures will be in. The pictures are in. Again, if anybody has pictures of when you played ball in high school, whatever, just email them to me. It's jmarola4747@gmail.com. Just put them in my email, and I probably have at the end now pictures. I probably have in probably close to 30. So, and just recognizing people. Like again, Section 5. We're just trying to do whatever we can to help it and give it a little juice and this and that and everything. So, everybody good?
Good.
Gee, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Now we're going to do the 1, 2, 3, and then we'll say,
Right.
this is the part we can.
Oh, you do it now?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was the beginning.
I know you're getting a little up.
Yeah.
Well, I get a little nervous.
He's ready to jump the gun. Don't jump off sides.
All right.
I'll take the whistle out. All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Keeping it real. Section 5 football.
Good night. Have a great night.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a view. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight, don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase, so catch me if I fall. Praying that this night's gonna last. You got it all on tap, I'm loving your vibe, always have your back. We like all the same tracks, listen all night in the sheets all black. Said I'm falling fast, don't remember life before you, that's fact. I feel good, you look great, I like you, I can't wait. A first time, a first date, you're so fine, I'm so late. You sip wine, I drink straight, don't waste time to my place. I feel my heart erase, so catch me if